Hey everybody! So today we're going to answer a question we get a lot from people, and that is when you're planning, on the very beginning of your planning, should you try to go with a tour group or a guided Camino group, or can you do this on your own by yourself, or walk with a friend or your spouse? So we're gonna give you our thoughts on that based on our many different walks on the Camino. So
stay tuned.
Okay, so there are basically 3 ways to walk the Camino, right?
Yes.
I mean, there are many variations of each one of these, but you either walk solo, or you walk with a spouse or friend, or you use the services of a guide service tour company who makes arrangements for you.
Right.
Those are the 3 basic ways. And so
there really are a lot of variations, and we're just going to give you a few of the upsides and downsides from our perspective.
Yeah, we're not going to promote one of these
Not
over
at all.
another. We're just trying to hit some of the high points of here are some really good things about this, and here are some things that maybe you haven't thought of that you might change your mind about it.
And you can then take this information as a starting point,
right,
and look into it a little more, pray about it, and you'll figure it out.
That's right. So what if you are considering walking solo? Is it safe? Do people do that? And the answer is yes. Lots of people do walk solo on the Camino. And yes, it is safe. And I would say whether you're solo or with other people, you want to always be aware of your surroundings, keep your valuables with you at all times, even take them to the shower. And we talk about some of these things in some of our other blogs and videos. But you can certainly do that, and you can feel good about it. If you are a woman wanting to walk solo, I would say just if you ever feel nervous at all about what stretch of the path is coming up, just see if there's someone, a little group of people that wouldn't mind having you walk along with them for a little while. It's very, very common for people who are traveling solo on the Camino to join up with another group or another couple for the day or an hour or whatever it might be. So don't worry about that. People do it, and yes, it's safe. Just be aware, like you should be anytime you're traveling. The other consideration is a lot of people want a solo Camino because they are just craving solitude. They're craving the time to have that meditation time for those hours every day, walking just alone, and maybe spending time in prayer with the Lord, working through something in their lives. So that is another reason why a lot of people really do prefer a solo Camino. And the other part is, guess what? You make all the decisions, and you're not having to compromise or talk over something with another person. If you want to do something, if you want to stop, you stop. If you want to go, you go. And actually, I remember, do you remember the Spanish man who was probably in his 70s that we met one day? We were taking pictures of a church that was just beautiful from the outside, and he asked if we would take his picture in front of the church, and of course we were glad to do it. He spoke excellent English, so we could communicate well. And he asked, had we walked the Camino before, and we said yes, we had, and we enjoy it every time. And we said, what about you? He said this was his 14th Camino. He was walking it solo, and he said, this is the first one I've ever walked by myself. And then he got a little smirk on his face. He said, and I kind of like it. He said, I've always walked with a brother or a brother-in-law or son or my wife, and I've always had to factor in their opinion about what they want to do. But he says, I'm really enjoying this. So anyway, that's a funny thing. But now the downsides of walking solo are that if you are truly solo, and you might think about, will you get lonely or not? Some people just can't wait to get out there and to have the solitude, but others, after they've walked for a while, maybe start getting lonely. Another thing is, if you are by yourself, you do have to come up with ways to keep your belongings safe. And like I said, you don't leave your valuables unattended anywhere. You always take your valuables with you. But sometimes solo walkers will get to know someone well enough that you can watch each other's backpack while you duck into the restroom or something. But you just have to use common sense and be diligent about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are just some of our thoughts about solo. We know some people who it's their favorite thing. It's their favorite way to go, is to walk solo and have that solitude. So we just want to commend it to you with those couple of things to think about, if maybe you hadn't thought about those yet.
The next way that people tend to walk the Camino is either as a couple or with a friend or some other relative. In that, we have the most experience with that because, yes, we're a couple, so, and have been for almost 50 years. So we have enjoyed traveling together. We enjoy seeing things together and being able to share things together. So those are some of the advantages that we see. We also like the fact that we tend to have different perspectives sometimes, and it's helpful when you're problem solving to have different points of view to figure things out. Like, where are we stopping? Where are we going to stay? Oh gosh, they're out of space. What are we going to do tonight? Just different things like that. Nothing that's a real big deal. Meals, you probably have more variety if it's a couple than if you're by yourself. And I don't know, I'm speaking about myself, probably doing the same old thing over and over, but because I'm comfortable with it. But so those are the pros. We haven't experienced cons just because we really enjoy being together. We have seen some cons where people really downsides where they
have conflict.
They had some conflict about something, or just aren't having the same experience that maybe they both hoped that they would have. One of them's having a good experience, one of them less so. That's just the nature of it.
Another benefit of walking with a friend or your spouse, in our case, is being able to relive the moments that were so fun or positive or interesting. When you're back home off the Camino, remember when we were in Pamplona in the tapas bar? Oh, and I remember that lemon gelato that we had, just reliving moments like that. You have someone to do that with if you had walked together with someone. So that's a real benefit that we have enjoyed.
The other thing that I would add is because we do make a habit of praying together a lot, we get to, as God speaks to one of us, we get to share that together. And we've found that having that experience actually deepens both of our spiritual experience of the Camino and just learning and having a better relationship as we walk through that. And when I talk about relationship, not just the two of us with each other, but with the Lord.
I think most of the questions we get these days have to do with asking us, have you ever considered using a company that sets up your Camino for you, either a tour or a guided Camino? Now, there are so many variations of this that there's no way I can touch on all of them. But just know that we have observed or talked directly with many, many people who are on some sort of a guided tour. Now, one thing that people really like about doing this type of service, using this type of service, is the company asks you what day you want to start walking and in what city and how far do you want to go and do you want what your pace is, and then they will set up all of your accommodations. They will make all your reservations for and decide where you're going to stop each day. And some of them even provide shuttle bus type transportation to pick you up at a certain time in a certain town and take you to where you're going to stay for the night. I mean, there's so many variations, it's hard to talk about it. But anyway, a lot of people really love the idea that somebody else is going to make their arrangements and all of that will be set up for them. That is until they get to the Camino and start walking. And what I would say is that I'm sure that there are people who wouldn't have even done the Camino, wouldn't have even walked it if they couldn't get this kind of help. In fact, one I can think of was a single woman, and she had been widowed not too long before we met her, and really wanted to walk the Camino, but she did not feel confident on her own to be a single woman traveling alone, and her adult children were not going to stand for it. They really wanted the assurance that mom had somebody looking out for her. So the only way she could do the Camino was to join a guided tour. And so she was looking forward to her experience on the Camino, and we did see her at an APOC chapter meeting after that, and she felt like the tour company was good. In fact, I think pretty much all of the tour companies, and there's several out there, and we can't say yes or no to any about any of them for you all to review them, but they people who were using them had positive things to say about the companies. They did what they said they were going to do. But here is one of the big downsides. Well, there's several downsides. Pretty much every person we talked to who was using a guide service or tour company was struggling to keep up with the schedule that had been arranged for them. And yet they had to, because they couldn't change their itinerary of where they were going to stay on a given night. So one way or another, they had to get to the next hotel that had been arranged for them. And they were finding out, I mean, I think pretty much all of them were limping when we met them at different stages along the 500 miles, 800 kilometers of the Francés is what we were walking at the time. So I remember one couple at breakfast said, of course, you recognize other pilgrims because we're wearing the clothes and the shoes, right? And we look a little scruffy around the edges. And you strike up a conversation. I think they were from Australia, this couple I'm thinking about. And so we were telling them, well, we're doing a slow Camino, and we were in Astorga at the time. So we were getting a lot closer to Santiago, but we had been on the road a long time, or been on the Camino a long time. They were disappointed that they did have everything arranged. They felt like they were missing something because they didn't have spontaneity to stop when they wanted to stop, stay an extra day where they wanted to stay, if they wanted to stay an extra day, not walk as far one day. I mean, there were all these things that they were experiencing, and they just looked at us and they said, oh, we want to come back and do it the way you all are doing it. Because they had gone with the tour company because they were so afraid that they wouldn't be able to figure out how to make the arrangements of having a place to stay for the night. But we told them our way of doing that, and they realized, oh yeah, we can do that. So before you make a decision to go with a tour company, just watch. We've got a couple of other videos we'll put links to for you to check out how to make arrangements for yourself. And so just consider that as...
I think that the other thing we want to say for sure is we don't think that the tour or guide company, whatever you want to call them, we're not sure what to call them, but we don't think that they're necessarily always pushing people too hard. But what we do think happens is that people overestimate what they can do. And then they tell the tour company, okay, here's the itinerary that I can keep up with. Maybe they don't plan any rest days. We always take at least one rest day a week while we're on the Camino, just because we need to.
And keeping the distance manageable,
right?
Day after day after day. That's another hard thing to predict.
It is.
When you haven't done it.
So that would be a caution that we would suggest, that you probably are better off, if you think you can do something, maybe assume 80% of whatever you really think you can do, because it will help you not to be too rushed. Now, we understand that as with everything, is you may only have a certain amount of time, and then the tour group is trying to help you fit your itinerary into the time that you have. So these are all things that you really do have to think about
And we actually have another video, and
We
we'll
do.
link it, about trying to figure out how far you can walk in the time you have, and do you have to walk the whole 500 miles? Well, the answer is no. How do you decide what part to walk? And so we cover that in other videos, but just
Yeah.
know that you know, we only tell any of this information to help you make a decision that is going to work for you,
Right.
and that will help you achieve the dream of walking the Camino that you have,
Yes.
and finish what you set out to do. It may not be to do all 500 miles, 800 kilometers of the Francés. It may be a portion of that, but you can still have a really good Camino experience,
Right.
by following some of the tips that we try to give in our videos on the channel here. So anyway, we're so thankful for each one of you in your support of watching the videos on this channel. And we would ask that if you haven't done it yet, to please subscribe. That way you will get a notification when we post the next video, which we try to do at least one a week. And the whole reason we do any of this is to get information out there for you to consider, to help you make the decisions that you're going to need to make to plan your Camino and have it be what you want it to be. So that's why we do what we do. And until the next video, we're going to say,
Buen Camino.